Beyond the Arc podcast, everybody. I'm Ashley Nicole Moss, Bill Ryder, and we're laughing because we thought we were live. We weren't live, but all you heard was the sound of Bill blowing.
It's gross. I thought we were muted, Ashley. I have a cold or whatever. I'm sorry. That's great. My family now.
Funny.
That's
Listen,
close.
guys,
We're
happy
close
Tuesday. Like I said, this is the Beyond the Arc podcast. I'm Ashley Nicole Moss, Bill Ryder. John Gonzalez is not joining us today. It's just me and Bill holding down the fort. If you guys haven't figured out by now, we kind of alternate the days to give you guys a little bit of a variety to go ahead and figure out what you like, what you don't like, keep it spicy. How was yesterday, Bill? I know you're getting over a cold. How you feeling today?
Good. I'm feeling better. I definitely medicated pretty strongly yesterday. I'm doing dry March.
What? So, no, I'm just kidding.
No, I wish it was with whiskey. I actually Googled, because it's an old wives' tale, does whiskey help a sinus infection? And I was ready to do some shots out of medicinal purposes.
Yeah.
Turns out it's not good for you. So I'm just.
Oh.
Yeah.
Well, that's unfortunate news.
I know, right? But I'm doing dry March, so I'm good.
Listen, shout out to Iowa. I don't know if anybody's been watching March Madness. Your hometown, your home state, rather.
Yeah,
close one. But Caitlin Clark and the girls made it happen. Shout out to them. Absolutely a phenomenal game. So if you guys are not tuning into March Madness, specifically the women's tournament, it's just been phenomenal from top to bottom. Make sure you guys check it out. Incredible games happening. A lot of upsets going down. It's a great time to be a basketball fan across the board right now. So
I'm going to Clemson, Arizona with my son on Thursday here in LA, men's side. Root for these Hawkeyes. Yeah, a little March Madness.
Yeah, that's going to be exciting. And speaking of exciting, yesterday, do you watch Stranger Things, by the way?
Oh, I love Stranger Things.
Me too.
But I'm a little worried when the final season comes back, all the kids are going to be 30. Let's get it going, Stranger Things people.
Well, listen, if you're not familiar with Stranger Things, there's this place called the Upside Down, and that's where you don't want to be. The Upside Down is where all the craziness happens, all the bad things happen, and where you got to go ahead and fight some battles. And yesterday was the Upside Down of the NBA. Actually, all of March, truly, but specifically last night. Going to go ahead and run through some of the things that have happened this month so far in the NBA, okay? The Celtics blow a 30-point lead to the Hawks. The Spurs beat the Suns without Wemby. The Wizards now have the longest winning streak in the East. And the Rockets have the longest winning streak in the NBA as a whole. So March is definitely the upside down right now, but it is Power Rankings Tuesday. So we are going to go ahead and do a little list in just a little bit. But first, let's dive into two of these stories that I just mentioned. Let's start with the Celtics. I mean, last night, absolutely insane. If you're a Boston fan, insane in a bad way. If you're a Hawks fan, insane in a good way. The Hawks overcame a 30-point first half deficit against the Celtics to get the win. Now, Atlanta trailed Boston 38-68, okay, late in the first half. All right, you guys heard that right. 38-68 in the first half, and then outscored them 82-50 the rest of the way. What the hell?
Yeah, what the hell? I love the upside down, by the way. Who's the monster in this? Is it Joe Mazzulla? Is he the monster creature that you're afraid of because you're kind of worried that he's going to lead you to darkness in the postseason?
Yeah.
Here's the thing. So I think it's fair to say that we all on this podcast have established our various personalities and quirks and opinions. And I think I'm the don't really want to react to a single game in the NBA season guy. I don't normally want to do that. But this 30-point blown lead by the Celtics, Ash, for me, I've been nervous about the Celtics all year. I know they're the best team on paper. I know they're the best team in practice. I know they obviously reinforced in the offseason. I think Brad Stevens will be executive of the year for bringing in Drew Holiday and Kristaps Porzingis. We've talked a lot about Jason Tatum's clutch numbers and fourth quarter performances being a concern. Not the case last night. He was great down the stretch. He was, I think, 5 of 11 in the fourth quarter. He was outstanding at the end of the game. But Boston blowing a 30-point lead. You tell me, I know they're the best team. I still think they're likely to get through. I'm just not as certain about these guys as other people are. And this is another example. I want to give you a quick stat and have you react to it. Our colleague Sam Quinn over at CBSSports.com pointed out, of the 15 Celtics losses, 8 of them are games where they blew a double-digit lead. So I'm worried there's some vulnerability behind this great basketball team.
It is interesting because I believe it was last playoffs where the Celtics had that weird series against the Hawks that what did it go 7 games when a lot
Yeah.
of people think it should have been over
Yep.
in 4, maybe 5 if they had a bad day. So it seems
I think it went
like it went
6.
6. Okay, so it went
But
6 games.
yeah.
Again, people thought 5 is being generous, that this was going to be a sweep if anything. So the Hawks and the Celtics have a little bit of history there. The Hawks seem to know how to get under the Celtics skin, but I mean, to your point, one of the things that a lot of people say about the Boston Celtics, which is why, they're not 100% on the Celtics train to go ahead and win the whole thing, is because you get a really, really good regular season Boston team. Usually you always do. Yeah, you have games like this where it's like, what the hell? But that's bound to happen when all you've been doing is winning all season long, right? You're going to have some missteps. But it's the way that these missteps happen that kind of sounds the alarm for a lot of people, because then it's like as you get closer to the playoffs, we have seen the Celtics put themselves in situations that they should not be in, and then at times that they cannot get out of. So it just seems like the character and the DNA of this Celtics team when it comes to that is still very much there, which concerns you. It's not necessarily that they're losing games, it's how they're losing the games that they're losing. And the fact that they've always kind of had this narrative about them that they're always figure out a way to shoot themselves in the foot, despite how good they are.
So I know that some people that are into analytics roll their eyes at this. And by the way, I think analytics are incredibly helpful, but I also think there are some psychological realities of being a human being and playing sports. So there's a concern I have about the Celtics as closers and as
Mm.
bringing their excellence immediately. And I want to refresh my memory. You're right. Atlanta 6-game series should have been quicker.
Mhm.
Then they got up 2-1 against Philly. Remember, Philly rounded off a couple wins, and it looked like Philly was going to win that series. So Boston came back in 1-7, but didn't, they played with their food a little bit, right?
Right.
They're not putting teams away. Then they got down 3-0 against the Heat in the conference finals last year, which would have been a huge upset for Miami. Seemed inevitable Miami was going to win. Boston rattles off 3 in a row, gets to go back home. You think, okay, Boston's going to make this amazing comeback, and they lose. You couple that with the blown games this year that we've talked about, including the 30-pointer last night. You
Right.
couple it with, again, not last night, but Tatum, his clutch numbers being historically bad the last 3 or 4 years, the worst among guys with a high volume of shots at the end of games in clutch time, 5 minutes or less, 5 points or less in terms of the score in the game. Yeah, they're amazing. It's going to be I need to see it. You're going to need to prove it to me to really have the confidence in Boston, say,
Right.
that I have in Denver now or had in the Warriors back in the day.
It's interesting too because when losses like this happen, it's always fun to play the chicken or the egg game, right? Does this say more about Boston or does this say more about Atlanta? Now, right now, Atlanta's in that final play-in spot. Obviously, Boston is sitting at the top spot in the Eastern Conference. So, do I give like this immense amount of credit to the Atlanta Hawks? Yes and no. Like, yes, because we have seen them kind of bring the Celtics a lot deeper in a series than they necessarily wanted to be in. So you do know that they're capable of kind of making things very difficult for them. But even in that situation, you wonder, was that more of Atlanta's doing or that was more of Boston just kind of playing with their food and underestimating their opponent? It can be a combination of both. But I do feel like Boston has a very bad habit of kind of coasting through games sometimes and then frazzling at the last minute to try to go
Yep.
ahead and lock in a win, which works 9 times out of 10 when you're the drastically better team. But there's always going to be a night, there's always going to be a day where you can't flip that switch or you do try to flip it and it's a little bit too late. And that's exactly what happened to them last night.
I think it's more about Boston. You get a 30-point lead with the best net rating in the NBA. Your defense is extraordinary. You should not allow a team to get that hot and to come back on you. I mean, it's inexcusable. I will
Right.
say this out of some respect for Atlanta, which people in Atlanta would say that I haven't shown enough of in my reporting and writing in the last year because we've sort of written them. I mean, I'm getting off it, but I've been on the Warriors can win the whole thing bandwagon from the 10 seed. I don't even
Mhm.
Atlanta. They're in the 10 seed right now too. They'd have to go the same route, right? Win 2 playing, and they're gonna make at least the 10, win 2 playing games, and then have to play Boston. Good luck. It's not happening. But I'll say this: there's obviously talent on that roster. Quinn
Yeah.
Snyder's a great coach that we never talk about because he's on a team that's not particularly relevant. And even though I don't think they're going to repeat it and the team's a little different, they did make that run a few years ago where they made a conference finals and I think they took out Philly on the way there and behind Trae Young. I mean, they're a dangerous team, but they shouldn't be so dangerous that they win this game last night or they pose any real threat to whoever they play in the playoffs.
It's definitely going to be interesting, but like you said, I think that it's pretty much, Boston's good as long as the only people who can stop Boston is Boston.
That's I know. I said that a few weeks ago.
Yeah, that's what it comes down to. It's Celtics versus Celtics. I don't know if anyone's really going to rattle, their cage.
I think your Knicks can. I think your Knicks can actually.
I think if the Knicks, I was going to say, I do think if the Knicks are fully healthy, toe-to-toe, game to game in a series, I think that is a team that can give them the most trouble in the East. Again,
I think the Bucks
fully healthy, healthy, because nobody really is come playoff time. Everyone has bumps and bruises. But I do think for me, the Knicks would be the biggest challenge that the Boston Celtics had in a 7-game series. I think.
Look, the East has opened up in a really serious way, and there's not a lot of contenders because of injuries. So there's a lot of suppositions behind even trying to conjure up a pretend challenger. But if OG Anunoby and I think Julius Randle in the playoffs, just for the offense, is back, in the Knicks in theory can be competitive. Now they need, in my opinion, for everything to go well, to play really well, and for Jason Tatum to basically shoot the Celtics out of 2 games in a quarter. That's asking a lot. I think the Bucks are a team too. I'm obviously not a big Doc Rivers guy, but they've been much better offensively over the last 15 games. Damon and Giannis are massively talented. Middleton's only been back in the mix for a handful of games. So there are teams out there that can do it. But to your point, it is about the Celtics it's about Jason Tatum not beating the Celtics when things get tight, I think.
Listen, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to talk about a team on the West Coast that's having a little bit of issues, and they're probably wishing they can get this one game back. And then we're going to go ahead and get into Bill's list of worst losses from yesterday. We're going to rank those in just a bit, so we'll be right back.
You came down here to tell us that your date is missing.
I did not get ghosted. I think he was taken.
You were dating as a way to face your divorce. Was I really the only thing holding you together, D?
Damn.
Ready or not,
I am in search of a man with whom I had a beautiful connection.
You can't hide.
If anything feels off, we'll go. Off.
Murderer.
Who are you?
Diara.
Welcome back, everyone. Beyond the Arc. Ashley here, Bill here. And I teased before we went into break a Western team that's wishing that they could have that night back. And I'm talking about the Phoenix Suns. Last night, Devin Booker and Kevin Durant combined for 65 points, which is impressive, except they lost.
Yeah,
and they did so against a Spurs team without Victor Wembanyama. So that in itself is just chaotic, which leads us into your list of ranking the top losses from yesterday. So for everybody who is unaware of what these losses are, let me go ahead and break these down real quick. So first up, we have the Celtics blow the largest lead in franchise history and snap a 9-game win streak to Atlanta. Then you have the Suns losing to the Spurs for the 3rd time this season. This time they did it without Wemby, and Kevin Durant and Devin Booker, like I said, combined for 65, but it was not enough. And the good old Clippers getting run off their floor against the Pacers the night after getting run off their own floor by the Philadelphia 76ers. And speaking of the Clippers, before we get to your list, Bill, Ty Lue spoke about the loss last night. And he had this to say. He said, quote, "Right now, do we have an identity? I think, yeah, we're soft." So
they are, by the way, last night, all 3 of those teams were soft. What's amazing to me about those 3 losses, and they're all excruciating for their fan bases, and they're all humiliating in different ways. Every one of those teams were legitimate title contenders, according to Vegas, according to themselves, and according to most of us at the start of the year. I think right now, I think we all agree Boston's still the title favorite, probably, along with Denver. I mean, the Clippers could right the ship. I don't think they will, but they're still in that 4 or 5 mix. So in theory, you beat, right now it's the Pelicans. It will be the Pelicans. Maybe you get rolling. They're probably not going to. And then the Suns feel like they're done and dusted. So if producer Aaron can throw the list up again, I'm just going to justify trying to rank from most humiliating to least humiliating. Tough call at 1-2, Ash. Because for the Suns, like, they didn't blow a 30-point lead. It was a close game. but they have lost to this brutally bad Spurs team 3 times this year. As you noted, there was no Wemby in that game. That's only the
Right.
second time this year the Spurs have won when they haven't had Wemby. The other one was against the Warriors, but the Warriors didn't have Steph in that game. And the Suns are fighting for something. They're trying to get out of that play, and they're just half a game back right now. So for me, that game is 100% unforgivable, Ashley. And it also, I think the Suns predicament, the Clippers predicament, the injuries that are out there, it feels to me like the West is starting to open up for Denver the way that it has opened up for Boston.
I mean, I agree. I think though, but I honestly feel like if we're being honest about the Western Conference, I don't think that it was ever really not for the Denver Nuggets to grab a hold of. I think that, yeah, OKC has been surging. Minnesota before Cat goes down, absolutely surging as well.
Right, that injury problematic.
The injury was just absolutely devastating to what the Minnesota Timberwolves were had going on. But like, let's be honest. Nobody had the Timberwolves coming out of the West. Nobody had OKC coming out of the West. You could say at one point people thought the Clippers were coming out of the West because they did have that stretch of time where it's like, damn, they're figuring it out. Like, we might have been wrong about them. But when we look at the Western Conference as a whole, I mean, who was really going to go ahead and give the reigning champs a true run for their money in a 7-game series? Nobody.
At the start of the year, the argument would have been, okay, maybe the Warriors can get right again because they won a championship a couple years ago. They're obviously holding on barely to that 10th spot.
Maybe.
The Lakers got dominated by the Nuggets in the conference finals last year, but they still got to the conference finals. There was a thought maybe they could do it. You're right. I think the Thunder are better than advertised, though most of us thought they were going to be pretty good. But even with the way that things have played out, the Thunder, and I guess you can make a case for the Thunder. I think they're too young and they're small. They're not in Denver's class for me. Maybe they'll prove me wrong. The Cat injury takes away a lot of surety for those Timberwolves believers like our co-host John Gonzalez. I wasn't one of them, but that sort of takes them out of the running. The Clippers have fallen off a cliff, and they're playing like garbage. I mean, Ty Lue's right. They are soft. They are off. It is ugly. Maybe you can make a case for the Pelicans, and we've talked a lot about sort of their analytics, and they're really good. But I'm not sure they're in that class. And then the Warriors and the Lakers obviously have continued to fade. And who am I forgetting? The Kings don't play defense. Yeah, just even the teams that maybe are going to pose a challenge don't look as threatening now as maybe even 2 or 3 weeks ago in the West.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's fair. I think, though, obviously hindsight is 2020, but I always personally had the Nuggets coming out of the West and the Celtics coming out of the East. For me, it was Boston, Denver. And I think that I had that probably like around the All-Star break. I just don't see, as good as everyone has been playing, I'm not as much of a believer in their capabilities to do it into the playoffs, to do it consistently throughout a series as I am in Denver. I mean, I just think that Denver, not only, maybe not even talent-wise, because there's a lot of talent in the West, as we always talk about. I mean, Dallas has talent. Phoenix has talent. The Warriors still have an immense amount of talent. You still have the Lakers. I mean, the list goes on and on. OKC, so much talent, but how you utilize that talent is drastically different. And I just don't feel like anybody is more prone and prime and ready to utilize the talent like the Denver Nuggets are. The way that they play basketball is just insane. Aaron Gordon is a freak of an athlete, huge fan. I mean, obviously Jokic, I mean, Jamal Murray, MPJ. I mean, the list goes on and on. There's not a team that can see them. I just don't see it happening.
Yeah, and by the way, I think there's a difference between teams being favorites and teams not being challenged, because Boston and Denver are the favorites. I just think challenges are falling by the wayside. If you throw the list back up, Aaron, I'll kind of finish my defense of awfulness. We talked about the Suns. We talked about Boston. You blow a 30-point lead. It's not the worst loss of the night. That is saying something, Phoenix Suns. And then the Clippers are third on here, but to sort of put a bow on this conversation, and we've already hit this, you're right, that is the main challenger. That was the main challenger in Vegas. If you looked at the odds, that was the team that you kind of looked on paper and you said, all right, you've got in Kawhi Leonard, a guy that can take over games. You have great perimeter defense. When they've played well, they've been good on both sides of the ball. You've got PG and Kawhi looking healthy, and I'm talking a week or 2 or 3 ago, and they've just hit a wall. So I'm with you, Ash. Both the Celtics and the Nuggets are the favorites. I think what's interesting to me, I think it's flipped now. I think it's more in the West. I don't even see challengers. It's one thing to be favored, it's another thing to be certain. And the sense of certainty for Denver to me just keeps increasing as teams get hurt or just are
Right.
losing their form as we get 3 weeks from the postseason.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely going to be interesting. Again, the Clippers are probably the biggest. The Clippers and the Suns, I would say, in the Western Conference are the biggest disappointment. I do feel like there may have been a little bit more expectation for the Suns just because of last year not getting it done than there may have been for the Clippers, only because James Harden, big question mark. I think everybody is kind of on the same page with that. There's a lot of disappointment in the Western Conference, but the Denver Nuggets are not one of them. Speaking of disappointment, there's gambling has kind of taken. Yesterday was a crazy day on the internet. I don't know if you guys were on social media yesterday.
Oh yeah, it was a good internet day actually.
It was a good internet
bad stories,
day.
funny day. Yeah,
between March Madness, between people's houses getting raided in multiple states, and gambling. Once again, front and center, because Toronto Raptors center Jontay Porter is out of the lineup and a subject of an NBA investigation into irregularities on prop betting involving him. So let me go ahead and break this down. If Jontay Porter's not a big name, it's because it's not. He's not somebody, a star, but he does play for the Raptors. The games in question are January 26th and March 20th. In both of those games, Porter exited early and did not return. So he exited both of those games early and did not return. Now, this is Michael Porter Jr.'s brother. Just want to put that out there. And so breaking this down some more, on January 26th against the Clippers, Porter left after 4 minutes of playing time. The Raptors said that he had an aggravated eye injury that he suffered 4 days earlier. As a result, the under hit for points, rebounds, assists, and made threes. DraftKings Sportsbook reported that the under on Porter's three-pointers was, quote, the biggest money winner for any bettors of any NBA player props from games that evening. All right. And then on March 20th, Porter played just 3 minutes against the Suns before leaving the game. The Raptors said that his removal was due to an illness and he did not return.
Yeah.
So
it's ugly.
It's looking dicey. It's looking dicey.
And it obviously, I know this is an NBA podcast, but I think it's worth mentioning this coincides with the Shohei Ohtani dilemma for the Dodgers, where he has accused his interpreter of running up $4.5 million worth of illegal gambling debt, allegedly. And there are questions about what actually happened, who actually made the bets, and we don't know. This is the new normal, Ashley. And we talked about this on the podcast. I think John and I, but maybe it was the three of us a week or two ago. This is the new normal. Though I think it's worth pointing out, I've heard people say more people are going to gamble, right? We're going to have more of these controversies because there's more gambling in sports. It is obviously endorsed. We talked the other day about League Pass having in-gaming opportunities, and therefore there's a causality here. And I think people are missing the mark. I actually think, counterintuitively, gambling becoming legitimized in sports is not going to lead to more sports gambling. It's going to lead to more people getting caught who are already gambling. And let me tell you why. I think it's actually sort of good news, because now that gambling's legal, you're going to have, like DraftKings, FanDuel, sportsbooks are going to protect their interests and protect their money. And that means that when they see irregular betting patterns, they're going to inform the NBA. We don't know this, but my guess, unless I missed it in the fine print of the reporting, is that they passed the information on to the NBA. The NBA investigated, and the NBA got to the bottom of it. And Shohei Ohtani, right? That those allegations involve an alleged bookie here in California, where I'm sitting, where it's illegal. Why do we know about it? Because there's a federal investigation into that alleged bookie, and those documents got given to ESPN. And let's be honest, like, the feds are going to investigate crimes, as you noted, houses getting raided across a spectrum of crimes. But if there's a lot of money involved and people want their taxes paid and the government wants their cut of money that's legally gambled, they're going to crack down on illegal bettors, and there's going to be more of this coming to light. My point is, I think people have always been gambling, but I think more is going to come to light now that there's some factors out there with gambling in the light, legitimized, approved largely by leagues. You're going to have more cooperation between legitimate gambling houses or websites and leagues. And guys who maybe got away with this 10 or 15 years ago are not going to get away with it as easily this time around.
It is interesting too, not that this is a big deal, but it does maybe put a spotlight on the type of players that could get caught up in situations like this. Obviously, Shohei Ohtani, it was his translator and not Ohtani himself who's caught up in the scandal. Obviously, Ohtani is
That's
yeah.
right. That's what Ohtani's
Ohtani
maintaining.
obviously is wrapped up by association. It's his translator, but it's not him specifically. In terms of Jontay Porter, $415,000 per season. So he's not making big bucks. He's on a 2-way contract. So it's not like this is somebody who doesn't need to. Not saying that he needs to. $415,000 is still a nice chunk of change, but it does kind of put a spotlight on maybe some of the guys that would be a little bit more inclined to go ahead and dabble in this. And interesting also, reporting from ESPN, they said that at least one other U.S. sports book detected an unusual betting interest on Porter props in games in question. A sportsbook industry source said that multiple betting accounts attempted to bet large amounts, upwards of $10,000 and $20,000 on Porter's unders in the January game against the Clippers. So this is a guy who, again, he's not a star. He's not making big bucks. And all of a sudden you have all of these, gamblers trying to place these unusual amounts of money on a guy that most people probably don't know of. It definitely raised some
It's
flags.
a big problem.
Yeah.
It's a big problem. And look, $415,000 a year might be a lot of money to you and me. It's not to somebody in the NBA, even if that's what they're making. Keeping up with the Joneses.
And in Canada, it's high taxes in Canada.
Yeah, and look, like if you live around a bunch of people making $10 to $50 million a year, that's your social circle, and you're making $400,000. You feel like you're behind. I'm not justifying
Michael Porter
the alleged
Jr.
behavior.
is his brother, and Michael Porter Jr. is making a lot more than $415,000. So
this is not going to be the last time. What's amazing is when League Pass came out with the news that they were going to have in-game betting, and we talked about this here on the pod. I said, and we talked about, there's going to be, at some point, you're going to have people gambling on sports. It's inevitable. It's going to be ugly. And then boom, Shohei Ohtani allegations with his translator, which some people doubt that it was the translator. We don't know. Mm-hmm. And now Porter, people are going to get caught more, I think, in the years ahead. So there's going to be more of a black eye on these sports because of gambling. But I also think you're going to have more of this problematic behavior rooted out, because you're just going to have more of a liaison between gambling sites, houses, venues, and leagues, because it's legal.
Yeah.
And they're going to communicate that, hey, this doesn't look right, NBA league office.
And for people who are confused as to why $10,000 or $20,000 would raise some red flags, just giving you some more insight. Betting limits on NBA player props by a bunch of different sports books. It varies, but usually it's typically around $1,000 to $2,000. So this was substantially more than what a usual or allowed limit is to go ahead and place a bet down. And once again, on a player that's not LeBron James. We're talking about a guy who, again, most NBA fans, diehard hoop fans, probably are not very familiar with. It just read shisty and shady all the way around.
As someone who has gambled a lot in his life, and as somebody who also, along with you and John, work at CBS Sports HQ, where we do a lot of gambling content over there, and I've done that over the years, and as someone who loves the pull of Vegas and plays a lot of poker and knows gamblers, people bet a lot of money on props. People will sometimes look for advantages in the margins with a fifth or a sixth guy on the roster, right? I mean, Bobby Portis Jr. might be someone you think you have an edge on, but they want a big enough sample size of guys playing minutes to think they know that players like this, Jontay Porter, who don't play, who are afterthought guys, a lot of money on those players is usually someone who's been drinking too much and confused them with their brother, or somebody who's got inside information, which is trouble. And that's true. I mean, that would be true on a bunch of $500 bets, but the max, it is extremely suspicious.
$10,000, $20,000.
It's a problem. It's a big problem.
It's a little suspicious.
Yeah.
Obviously we'll keep you posted as this story develops and as more information comes out and whatever the NBA decides, the Toronto Raptors decide. I mean, Bill, is this something that I know in the NFL we've seen guys, like Calvin Ridley is a name that comes off the top of my head, suspended an entire year for that. In the NBA, what kind of penalty, if anything, is there? Do you think?
Ridley's accusations were different in the sense, like this
Right.
is betting on yourself, allegedly betting on yourself, and
Allegedly,
allegedly this is a lifetime ban. And they'll make, if these allegations are provable and they're true, he'll be out of the NBA for the rest of his life. They will make an example of him because they can. Adam Silver in the league office, Ash, can write this out. What will be harder to get past if it ever happens with a name brand star or an impactful player, a big player on a super relevant team.
Well, we shall see. Bill Ryder, our NBA insider, everybody. We'll be right back after this quick break. We're going to talk some Knicks. They're beefing with a certain head coach. We'll be right back.
For the last 4 years, I've been a prisoner of this hotel. G-sharp, I believe.
Why are they keeping you here? Why do they let you live?
Most of my friends are dead. My house was seized and burned.
You must never leave. If you do, I'll be waiting.
They can take away everything. But they can't take away who you are.
Welcome back to the show, everybody. Ashley Nicole Moss, Bill Ryder, and we are back and we're talking some New York Knicks. Now, yesterday, the Knicks took on the Detroit Pistons and, we did what the Knicks do and we won. So,
yeah, you guys, yeah, you do.
Yeah,
that's the upside down. Can we put that as the proof that we're in the upside down? That
no,
we're in
we
a
cannot,
world
Bill. Have some
Knicks,
respect, okay?
I'm having respect for history. I have respect for Leon Rose doing the impossible. All right, sorry.
The Knicks are currently 4th in the Eastern Conference, sitting at 43-28, and the Pistons had the worst record in the Eastern Conference at 12-60. So it's a tough time to be a Detroit Pistons fans. Actually, they had the worst record in the entire league because San Antonio is at 16-56. So, worst record in the league, but that's clearly not the only thing that Monty Williams, head coach of the Detroit Pistons, is worried about. Apparently, he is worried about beefing with Josh Hart. So Monty Williams had an issue with Donte DiVincenzo, a.k.a. Big Ragu, stat padding or allegedly stat padding, as he said, his 11 threes, saying, quote, "I don't care about their team, salty much. I couldn't care less, salty much. Those guys, the way they got those threes, I don't want to be a part of that story." Seems like you got a little dip on your chip there, Monty. Well, Josh Hart responded.
Perfect response, Colin, by the way. I love this.
He said, well, if he didn't want to be part of the story, he should have told his guys to defend better.
Yeah. I mean, look, I got mixed feelings here, Ash, because Monty Williams is a beloved figure in the NBA, or was. Yes. I don't know him super well, but in my interactions, great guy, can really like him. Always happy when somebody gets their money. In any walk of life, get your money, get your bag. Congratulations.
Hey, that's right.
Amen. Let's go. But I was a little bummed for the NBA when he took the Pistons job because I personally thought he would have been a perfect fit in Milwaukee. I thought he would have been interesting in Philadelphia. I like Nick Nurse a lot as that hire. There were really, really good jobs available when he was out in Phoenix.
Right.
And he took the money, right? He took his bag. That's fine. Whatever it was, $80 or $85 million over multiple years. A lot of money. But the sky is falling and the wheels have come off and he has not handled it well this year. And hey man, Monty's got to know, and Hart is right. You don't want the guy to be hot, stop him. And in basketball, whatever the score, the hot hand's going to keep getting the rock.
Right.
I mean, we've all seen NBA Jam mode when there's flames coming out of DiVincenzo's face and legs and arms. They're going to keep passing him the ball. So Monty it looks like he does not look like a particularly gracious or impressive leader because he's obviously not enjoying life despite the money on running a really bad team and not doing a good job.
I mean, look, yes, losing sucks. It's not fun, especially being the worst team in the NBA. I think that a lot of people thought that, listen, Detroit has a nice little core of young talent. You bring Monty Williams into the equation. I think a lot of people would never have, assumed that they would be this bad. That they wouldn't,
It's bad.
would they be a playoff team? No. Would they be a play-in team? Probably not. But they wouldn't be the worst team in the NBA. They are. So clearly he's in his feelings a little bit. He's in his emotions a little bit. There have been
He
some
is in his
games
feelings.
where they've been close to winning some things and they haven't, whether you want to say that's bad calls, bad this, bad that, whatever the case may be. But this, Monty, your priorities are out of whack because you should be less concerned about stat padding, allegedly, and more concerned why you only have 16 wins for the season. That's where your concern should be.
Stat padding's fine. These are grown men.
It's like, what do you want me to do?
Yeah, these are grown men who get paid a lot of money. And even if you got paid a little money, these are professional athletes who are competing. It's not like the Knicks were playing against my University of Missouri Tigers in an exhibition game and ran the score up.
Right.
Like, hey, Pistons, go stop him. And DiVincenzo was balling. Like, and not only that.
One time for the big ragu.
No Anunoby. No Julius Randle, no Mitchell Robinson. I mean, Jalen Brunson's amazing, but other guys, and DiVincenzo a big part of
Miles McBride.
The Miles McBride game a week ago. I've been helping carry these guys. The Knicks are playing good basketball at a time when most teams, if they lost their two best players, their second and third best players, most teams would fall apart.
Yeah.
Most teams would not play good basketball. And if a little bit of that joy is running up the score and hitting a bunch of threes and setting records, to hell with Monty Williams being mad. Good for the Knicks.
It's also interesting, too, because Knicks fans obviously are very, very familiar with the talent that's sitting on the bench. But I think now the rest of the world, the rest of the basketball world is seeing, okay, they're not as shallow as I thought they were. They have some depth. Tibbs just doesn't utilize it. So now that everyone sees it, Tibbs, now you're on the hot seat. You got to go ahead and give us some creativity in the playoffs because everyone knows it exists. And if you don't, your head is on a stick, my friends.
That's a great point. That's the other reason. I know we hit this already, but part of the reason the Celtics have such an easy road is even the teams that have maybe a chance to be competitive against maybe Boston in a 7-game series, right. The Bucks and the Knicks, two of those teams, their coaches are the big X factors, assuming that the Knicks get healthy and everybody's healthy, right? And the Bucks are healthy. Do I trust Doc Rivers in the playoffs? Hell no. Maybe he'll be great. Do I trust Tibbs to really manage a deeper roster effectively, to know when to use Randle because you need offensive output and when not to because maybe you're in rhythm without him and your defense is improved, right? How do you use DiVincenzo? What do you do with some of the other guys that don't even get minutes now? How deep? I don't trust Tibbs because if Tibbs had his way, he'd play 5 guys, 48 minutes a game, every game and run them into the ground. So it's an interesting question for the Knicks on what their head coach, who's been great, can he make the adjustments to his own history and approach to take advantage of a Knicks team that you said is deeper than we thought. And I think we'll have to run some different rotations and approaches depending who they play and sort of where they are in games and series. It's going to be really interesting.
It's definitely going to be fun. And like you said, when OG and Mitchell Robinson and Julius Randle come back and they're on their way back, this is going to be an even deeper Knicks team that we both agree can probably give the Celtics a run for their money if it comes to that point.
Maybe.
So
yeah,
it's going to be fun to watch.
Let me ask you a Knicks question.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm sorry. All right. I hope you get both. I don't want to be negative. I hope OG and Julius come back.
Mm-hmm.
But if you could only have one, you could snap your fingers. One is back in a week and they're healthy the rest of the playoffs, but the other doesn't play again this year. Do you want Anunoby or do you want Randle?
Give me Anunoby.
Me too.
Yeah.
They're a different team with him.
Yeah, drastically different. Better defensively. Yeah. Anunoby can also give you points. He's
a winner.
And I absolutely love Julius Randle. I am a big Julius Randle fan for a very long time. While Knicks fans were not high on Julius Randle because of his temper tantrums and all that stuff, I was very much still on the Julius Randle train. So this is not a knock to my guy Julius, but if I had to take a pick, give me Anunoby for sure.
I just want to see that Knicks team. I'm interested in, and we've thrown this stat out a lot, 15-2 when Anunoby has played since coming to New York in a trade with Toronto. I want to see that team. Maybe they're not good enough against Boston, but I want an answer. I want to know. I hope he's back in time.
Yeah, for sure. Listen, this has been fun, Bill. Yeah. We talked some conspiracy theories. We talked about rating. We talked about losses. We talked about gambling. We talked about your cold. I mean, I feel like we hit
did.
every
I had a
sector
big
of like
sneeze.
conversations today.
Let me ask you a quick question. Do you believe in aliens? So conspiracy theories.
Yes, I believe in
Hell
aliens.
yeah.
The only one of the three of us who doesn't is John, which is why I say, listen, for people who don't know, me, Bill, and John had this conversation very, very early in like our dress rehearsals for the podcast about aliens. And John and his buddy took a trip to Area 54. He was not impressed. Bill and I were like, how dare you? That's sacred ground. Like, this is like, what are you doing? And I said, and I'm a firm believer in this, whenever aliens decide that they want to invade, all the non-believers, you guys are done for.
Oh, you think you think that's how they're going to separate us?
I think that whoever's a believer is going to be able to go to whatever, it's like stay, if they're going to, take over the earth, then they're going to go ahead and we'll be able to stay and live with the aliens and work side by side type of thing. Everybody else is going to be like, I don't know what's going to happen to them, but I'm a believer, so I'm going to be okay.
You took it to a whole different level than I love that.
Think about it.
I love that. All right.
And they have the technology to read your mind. They'll know if you're lying.
Okay.
So,
I didn't know that. All right.
Just saying.
Let's go.
Listen, while Bill and I prepare for the invasion of the aliens, you guys prepare for another episode of Beyond the Arc. Tomorrow, it's Guys Night, or Guys Day, rather. Bill and John will be back. Until then, we'll see you tomorrow. Bye.